So now that all this 30 squares are sewn up, we need to square off the panel. So with our squares we only have one side to square up, but we're using our square ruler to do that. If you're new to quilting and you have found that your block has kind of gone on a bit of an angle, you can square up the whole block. Just make sure that you bring every single block down to the same size. Sorry, I forgot to film all 30 squares finished, but at this point we are sewing 5 of the squares together to create each row. So you might have noticed during this video we've started using what they call a cotton bunny. Basically it is a piece of scrap fabric that you're putting at the beginning of your seams so that you can chain stitch. There are a couple of reasons why this has become really popular in quilting. One is the amount of thread you save. It seems weird that you're sewing onto this and you think you're saving thread, but because you're not having to hold your threads from around the machine, chain stitch a bunch of your pieces, then when you need to break the chain you just pop this back in the middle, and so you're only using that much thread for the chain to go onto something new, then actually having to re-hold all your threads. The other reason for using one of these little cotton bunnies is it stops the knotting in under your machine. Sometimes if you don't hold your threads properly, or you forget to hold your threads all together, you go and start sewing and the machine basically sucks your threads back in and it knots, and then you're back to having to unthread your whole machine and start again. So that's why we've started using one of these little cotton bunnies. Now that we have sewn all the squares into rows, the next step is to be sewing our 6 rows together. So we're ready to join these 2 rows together. So when we join the rows together, making sure that the seams are going opposite directions so that they nestle in nicely. So this is what you want your 4 squares to look like once your panel's together right in the corner. And this is by putting your seams in opposite directions underneath does help give this closer nestling together, so that when you iron out the other side you can see that it's really nice and close. You might get the odd one that's not as close, but you know, it's only a couple of mils and nobody's visually going to see that once you've quilted it all. Okay, so this is the panel that's got 4 of the rows sewed together. Now we're going to grab the 2 rows that we've just sewed and match it up on the top edge and do the final seam. Well, there is all 30 squares sewn up. We just measured the quilt topper that we've got at the moment, and it is 80 inches by 95. At this point it sounds like it's probably going to be big enough to go over my mum and dad's queen size waterbed. Waterbeds are a little bit longer than a standard bed, so we will still try it on there to check it out. If you did need it bigger because you wanted a king, or you wanted to make sure it goes right up over the pillows or hangs right to the floor, at this point you could add a border or two, which we will decide on that once we've popped it on the bed and had a little bit of a look. So the quilt top is a perfect size for this bed. As I said, it is a water bed, so it is a bit longer than the average bed, but it is a queen size width. So if you were using a standard bed, you probably could get away with just doing 25 squares and doing it 5 by 5. But we knew that we needed to do an extra panel to compensate for the extra length of the waterbed, and also this way it has a nice cover over the top of the pillows, but also enough of the fabric, enough of the quilt will be able to get tucked into the bottom of the bed as well. So it looks like we don't really need to put a border on, just choose a colour for the backing fabric and the binding.
Yeah.
So we are thinking probably using a dark blue for the binding and maybe a dark grey for the backing fabric. So for those who have watched a few of my videos in the past, you might remember that I started hand sewing some cathedral windows before Christmas, with the hope that I would get this project done for Christmas. I kind of really quickly realised that wasn't going to happen, and so I put it aside for a little while, and then I've just picked it back up again and have started sewing the panels actually together. And the idea is I'm going to make this into a table runner, so they're just going to line up all the way along to make a nice table runner. I am still in two minds about whether to fill these centre squares in with a fabric or not. So just to give you an idea on what it would look like if I filled in all the diamond patches, I've just placed another square on top, with a possibility to fill in this diamond and leave triangles on the edge, or to leave a big triangle on the edge. The other thing that I'm trying to decide on with my table runner is if I go just 3 wide like this, or if I go 4 wide, which would mean turning the panels this way. By having it 4 wide, it will cover more of the width of the table, and the table I'm thinking about putting it on is quite a wide table. I think it would be about 1.20 m wide. So it definitely would work, and there's still plenty of length to use it on that table as well. But my thought is if I go 4 wide, it's not long enough to be a table runner on something like a trestle table. So it would mean that it's maybe limited. So that's what I'm going to try and decide at this moment is, do I go 3 wide or 4 wide? And do I fill in these centre diamonds? So pop in the comments if you have some thoughts, and we'll just, I might leave it a week and then make a decision to decide what I'm doing. After I've made a decision, obviously I will hand sew all these panels together into one piece, which will be nice. If I decide to do all the centre diamonds with fabric in them, it will take me a lot longer because obviously there's a lot of centre diamonds. And again, if I was going to put colour in the centre diamonds, do I use the same fabric I've got there, or do I just go for a plain sort of cream calico, or do I go a green, or do I just continue with the same fabric? So yeah, pop in your thoughts and comments below, and I'll give you an update once it's done.